What's up, everybody? This is K Study QB, and we are back just for our reunion show, our catch-up show. We got a lot to talk about. I'm so happy to have my guys, David, Johnny, and they are in the building. Let me go around the horn, have everybody say hi. I'll start with David.
Yeah, hi. I just fell out of a coconut tree. I am happy to be here. Thanks for having us back.
Speaking of that, we will talk about who we're going to be supporting later on in the show, but go ahead, David.
Yeah. But no, I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for having us back. Thanks for having me back.
Awesome. Johnny.
Oh, what's up, man? I mean, it was short notice, but I was thinking about you. Yeah. It's a lot to talk about. We'll get to it.
Day.
Hello, everyone. I have missed you all so much. Super excited to be here and to chat all about the craziness of the world.
Oh yeah. All right, so let's get to it. First thing I want to talk about is Johnny. I'm excited to hear about this nonprofit that Johnny is working on and established. Go ahead and tell us about it, Johnny.
All right. So back in November, some people that I work with and I started working with Warren Mosler, who's considered the father of MMT. And, you know, there's a kind of a hole in the MMT community for lay people to learn what it's about. And so we started putting this platform together. I don't know if you got the link there in the chat. You can share that. It's understandingmmt.org. And we've got courses. We're going to be doing workshops. We got a blog section, and we're trying to work through our fact check process, right? Like, for instance, Elon Musk. Thank you. Yes. Elon Musk tweeting that the country's going bankrupt while he's also got his hand out for, government money. So what's the story behind that? Can the government go bankrupt? No. The answer is no. The government creates all the money that it needs. So when activists and candidates and political parties are out there talking about money operations from the perspective of the mainstream lies, then you're basically agents of the mainstream, and you have to stop. You have to understand that they're lying to you. Your tax dollars are not going over to pay for genocide in Israel. What's happening is they're creating money and they're paying for things and buying things, and they're doing that. You should be more upset over the fact that they could also give you healthcare, give you education, give you infrastructure, and fund a jobs guarantee, but they won't. They can do that. They're not broke. They don't need your tax dollars to operate and to do that stuff. So this is the kind of information that you guys need to, if you're in this realm, if you're talking policy. Economic policy is what government is. It's all started with money. The government created money and said, we need an army, we need this, we need that, we need roads, bridges, hospitals, whatever. So that's why this is important overall. And I'm on the board. I'm the operations coordinator. I've kind of helped guide the project in some of the things that we've got on the table. The fact checks, the courses, I thought they were important from especially a layman's perspective. And then, as I mentioned to you guys, I want to do workshops with you guys. So we'll do a workshop, and we're going to, be able to sit and have live Q&As about things. So that's what we've been working on. We've got it launched June 1st, and then we went to a conference in England where Warren was kind of centered. And it's free, by the way. It's just, it's a membership. You have to kind of sign up so we know who our students are, and then we can email and communicate with you. We're getting ready to open the Discord for students so people can interact and ask questions. They don't understand something. It's like, okay, what does this mean? As long as you're going through the course, then we'll answer your question. Otherwise, we'll point back to the course. But other than that, that's what I've been working on, and we're going to be reaching out to communities. And another member's been reaching out to like the Green Party. We're nonprofit. We're a 501c3, so we're nonpartisan. This information applies to everybody who's a policymaker and everybody who's an activist. Doesn't matter what spectrum you're on, because it's fact. That's what it is. It's not. It's a view of how things work, and then you take that information and decide how to use it.
Awesome. I just want to give a quick shout out to Holly Horn in the chat, and also Christian Strand. Holly is always down for from day one, kind of political junkie. I appreciate you so much, Holly. And on Johnny, yeah, that's a lot of interesting stuff. I just created my account just now, my case study account, so I'm definitely want to check out the courses and go through it. You know, something that I was thinking about. I wonder if there's a way, because you need MMT. You're basically educating the masses so that hopefully we can implement MMT at the government level, correct?
Well, push back on the lies, right? When they say we have to pay our debt off, we're going to buy Bitcoin to pay our debt off. What do you mean? Who are you going to buy it from, first of all? And then what are you going to buy it with? You're going to buy it with US dollars, right? Mm-hmm. And then you're going to use Bitcoin to give to who? The government to pay off a debt that doesn't need to be paid off? That's just a representation of the money that's in circulation. So it's things like that. When you're having these arguments, if you're not having them from a place of reality and you're doing it wrapped up in their, you know, in their basic, their mythology and their lies, then you're going to lose the game every time. So you have to come from a perspective where, like, when the mainstream media posts something on social media, if there's 1,000 people in the comments going, nah, this is bull, dude. Nah, that ain't how it works. And they're just hammering them. Eventually, the mainstream media is going to be like, okay, this is not how it works. And there's a movie out that has become popular called Finding the Money with Stephanie Kelton. And the former Fed chair says, you know, he can't answer the question about, like, whether the national debt, like, he stumbles because they're all lies. So if the mainstream starts, I mean, you know, the masses, lay people, start understanding, dude, this is where money comes from. This is what it is. This is how it works. And the government's lying to you. You know, we can do what we want. Then the politicians will have pressure on them because, remember, policy is influenced by the culture. It's not the other way around. You don't put policy in place to influence culture. You can. It does happen that way where you put policing in place and it influences the culture. But the policy usually reflects the needs of the culture, right? So if you change the culture around it, eventually the policies, I don't know, just you have more people focused on the reality that they're living in instead of living the lies. I think it's going to make a difference. Plus, you have other MMT groups that are pushing, I mean, there are lawyers that are sitting with policymakers that are explaining to them, you can have a job guarantee and you don't have to raise people's taxes, you know. I mean, things like that.
I always hear about the notion that because during COVID we pumped so much money into the system that's why now we have inflation. But we all know it's greedflation.
That's right. So you're starting to see now they're lowering prices, right? And I was telling everybody that isn't what happened. What happened was the people that had the most power on the monopoly table saw that other people got a dump of money. And they know to the penny how much you have in your savings and checking because it's all electronic. Every day they know there's a number. You can look it up yourself. It's public information. They know how much is in everybody's savings. And they said, like, dude, these people got too much money. They can then extract too much power that we want to have. So they raise the prices. Look at the price of eggs went up, right? And then what happened? You look at the profit. That's the record that they have to publicly share with people. And it was up 60%. And that happened to be the amount eggs went up. It's not rocket science, people. It's the prices do not go up because if we started the game of Monopoly with usually you start with $1,500, right? That's we all four get $1,500 to start the game. If I pumped as banker $15,000 into the game for each player, would the prices change? No. There's rules in place that say you can't raise the rent until you buy a house. You can't buy a house until you own all three properties. So there's things and checks and balances in place. So the price can't even go up until you actually do something. But you still have a choice if Day lands on your property to let him slide. You don't have to charge him, right? You don't even have to raise the rent.
Okay.
So price increases are typically a choice of somebody, like if it's for oil. So they raise the price of oil artificially, mind you, just like they did in the 70s. They artificially cut supply so that they could have an excuse to raise the price because so-called demand. but there was plenty of oil everywhere. There was plenty of crude oil, but they still used that excuse. They cut supply so that they could say, oh, OPEC said we're going to turn now the price up, right? So now everybody who uses gasoline, which is everybody, the price goes up. So that hamburger that goes to the the fast food store, it costs more to get there because the truck costs more, to fuel. So does the ship, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But it still started with some person. So
you could talk about this for hours and hours, and that's what the course is for.
Right. Okay. So there you go. That's kind of a breakdown of what it's all about.
I appreciate
getting those answers.
Awesome.
I appreciate your passion with that and keeping that at the forefront, because just like Medicare for All could fall off the face of the earth after it was very popular. I mean, it's still popular. But being talked about in the ether on social media and stuff. I'm glad you're out here still making MMT popular and still keeping the voice alive for it. So next, we're going to talk to my guys, David and Day. They have the podcast Call Me Limbo podcast, an excellent podcast, and they're going to talk about how they're going to be going to the DNC soon. So go ahead, whoever wants to talk first.
I'll keep it short, and David can do the rest. But shout out to Christian watching and Holly, everybody, appreciate you. So we have been being blessed. So many people have been listening and sharing, which has been like crazy. So please continue to do that. David and I are preparing to head to Chicago. You do have to do the media press passes a little early, and we did miss that deadline. But if you know of any protest outside the DNC, if you know anybody that's trying to do a movement or some type of resistance protest, please let us know at callmelimbopod@gmail.com. We would love to. Our goal is to get out there and talk to the people and kind of see people of no matter where they fall on the spectrum of voting or not voting, not supporting or supporting. So yeah, that's the main thing. But David, anything you would like to add?
Day, I know where all the resistance protests are gonna be, and I was way more interested in talking to people outside the DNC than the people inside. So yeah, but we are really excited to go. We've put out like 66 episodes now, and we've had really great guests. Case was our first guest ever.
Yes.
We had Marianne Williamson on.
Yeah, listen to that one.
Yeah, we had Councilwoman Chantel Lewis on. We had my friend Shane Hodges on, who just wrote a book.
We'll have Johnny on soon.
We've got other people lined up too. But yeah, it's been really, really fun. And it comes out every Friday morning.
Awesome. That's I've already listened to some of the episodes, and I definitely have to catch up on some of the latest ones. But I'm looking forward to. And before we started the show and Dave, you came on, I was trying to convince Dave, nudging him like, "Hey, we get a podcast where you are on video on YouTube. That'll be in my notifications. I could easily get to it, but we'll talk about that later. Or I'm looking forward to seeing that change. So let's go to the first video, and this video actually was one of the most popular video that I've ever done on the Twitter account Case Study QB, and I'm curious to get your reaction. It's an oldie now, but it had 2.3 million views, and I wanted to get y'all opinion on it.
I said it don't matter our opinion because it's out there with 2.3 million.
I know, right? Let me know if you can hear it first of all.
And I've said this over and over again.
Okay,
Joe Biden was not picked in 2020 because he was. And I've said this over and over again. Joe Biden was not picked in 2020 because he was the only person who could beat Trump. He was picked because he was the only person that could beat Bernie Sanders. Rightly or wrongly. And by the way, for the Sanders fans out there, I'm not judging, but that conclusion was made. Okay. Oh my gosh. Coming out of Nevada, Bernie Sanders is going to be the nominee. And people, just like they are now, back then said, I don't think that's going to work. So they were looking for an alternative. And tip of the hat to Joe Biden, he had the record. 8 great years as vice president. And I've said this over and over again.
Yeah. I mean, that went everywhere because now you're saying the quiet part out loud. You're saying something that we've known about 4 years ago, that everyone was gaslighting us, telling us, oh, no, that's not the case. Here you have Adam Smith, who's an establishment Democrat, who's basically saying the quiet part out loud. Who wants to go first on this one?
I can go if that's okay.
Go ahead, Dave.
You hit it perfectly. you get gaslit so hard as a leftist, and so you're always feeling like we're 3-4 years ahead of this past this conversation, and now it's like, wait, oh, y'all just found that out? Oh, okay. And it is annoying because you sound like a conspiracy theorist to people when you say it, and it's like, no, it's right here. Like Biden's own admin people talked about the fact that, like, no, people listening to the party were like, they don't know if they would vote for Bernie or Trump if Bernie got it. And I love the fact that, sarcastically love, that no one challenges it. Like the lady sits there like, okay. And it's like an open secret to them, but to the everyday person, I think they have conditioned them to be, despite needing to save democracy, I feel like the media has done a great job at normalizing undemocratic practices. And it's really sad because
Uh-oh.
All right. What? Why are you all doing that? No pushing.
Oh, you froze for like a minute. They say that last point.
Oh no.
Yeah, say that.
I was saying that it's so sad that viewers have been conditioned to need to save democracy while accepting undemocratic practices. Like, hey, no, that lady heard that and nothing in her said, hey, why are you all picking who can beat instead of just listening to the voters? That's not a question. That's not the follow-up. And it's just embarrassing.
1000%. Johnny or David, anyone? You guys?
Yeah. So that right there is, the point that they keep talking about saving democracy, and they're the least democratic representation of the two parties. I mean, it's horrible. Their delegate system, the way they collude to exclude people. They did it basically in my campaign as well. And to sit there and throw this ideology that you're saving democracy from fascism when you're the one enabling the fascist threat, even to the point of funding mega candidates in their primaries. The same Pied Piper strategy that Hillary lost, right? So they're going to put 10, 15, 20, congressional candidates up thinking, well, only 5 or 6 will get through or whatever their thinking is. But why even bother? Why go that route and promote that ideology unless you need it to survive? And that's where we look at the neoliberal fascist relationship of the controlled opposition, because they need each other. They're a codependent relationship. And we're stuck in the middle because we just want some health care, man.
Yeah.
Education. That's it. Can you get us some health care? I mean, I'm talking to people in the store all the time that are like, this is ridiculous, and yeah. So go ahead. That's where that went.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything that's been said. And I was like, and similar to like what Day said, I was like, it's just thinking about the way that the Democratic National Party basically chose Biden again without any sort of primary process. And then all of those delegates that were pledged to him are now just all of a sudden going to Kamala Harris. And so I was like, it doesn't make sense. I was like, where's our choice? And if you go and look on their campaign website right now, at least when I looked a couple of days ago, there is literally no platform at all.
Yeah.
And so it's like, what are we voting for? What are we voting for?
And that's one of my biggest pet peeve is a candidate comes out and they just say, hey, vote for me. And not just vote for me, donate to me. That's usually their first page is a splash page that says donate here. But I'm like, and a lot of times you don't know if it's a Republican or a Democrat because it's such vague knowledge, verbiage on their site that you have no clue which one it is. And to me, it is a slap in the face. Now, what I've been hearing lately, because I've watched Bernie Sanders had like 2 interviews recently, and I've heard some other things. And even Kamala Harris said herself that she's going to be coming out with the economic policy agenda. I think she said in a week. So we'll see if maybe it's during the convention that she might premiere it or before. But I know right now she's just vacuuming up as much money as she can by being as vague as possible. We heard that she already said she's definitely not doing Medicare for all. She's we changed her stance on fracking. and some other things that she's moderated on. And matter of fact, let me show this clip real quick.
And while you're pulling that up, Case, I was like, we literally have one more party. We have one more choice than a dictatorship, pretty much. And so it's like the fact that you can't tell the difference between the parties.
That's a good point.
Because there isn't really much of a difference.
Yeah, there isn't. All right.
We did about Vice President Harris.
So what I think she needs to do is not let Donald Trump rattle her. I think she needs to, for those voters who are saying, I've heard that you're very progressive. I've heard that you are way outside the mainstream. I've heard that you hold some views that seem like I just can't go there with you. I think she needs to speak to those voters because she has locked up the Democratic base. She does not need to speak to progressives and rally them anymore. She's going to have to speak to that middle in the debate.
What about Vice President?
I just clipped this today, and this is in regards as the Chiron says at the bottom, what do, and this is specifically talking about Harris, what does she have to do during the debate? And I saw they had a reaction, so go ahead, Dave. Oh, you're on mute, I believe. I think you're on mute.
How do I get on TV and speak nonsense and get paid millions of dollars? Like, this woman has never talked to properly a progressive in her entire life. So the fact that she can so casually speak for the fact that Kamala Harris doesn't need to, who is this middle voter that they imagine exists? I will actually give her that Tim Walz, as her pick, is actually very good at messaging progressive politics. And the fact that one, you're too far left. Notice that anytime that argument is used by Donald Trump, it is never supported by a policy. It's just an idea or a framing that they want to get attached to Kamala. But Kamala could easily push back on that by saying, in every other country, they have healthcare. There's nothing radical that I'm asking for, but what is radical is taking away the rights of people to choose when it comes to their abortion rights. It's radical to do this, all the things that the right is doing. But instead, it's like, nope, got to backpedal and coochie pop and appeal to that imaginary middle. There is no, I always say this, there is no imaginary middle. If you say you're quote unquote moderate in America, it means you're right wing, because that is where our middle is at in terms of the way our politics is discussed. But it is not where where our political class is. But the average American people, including in red states, want economic policies that are considered moderate in every other country, but left wing in ours. And if you have, I'm tired of Democrats pretending that, like, Republicans get out there with crappy policy and sell it like they are giving you a diamond ring. And then Democrats have diamond rings and pretend that they are Cupid zirconia, whatever the stuff is called. And it's just like, at what point is this not intentional malpractice? Mm-hmm. Or are you just admitting that you're bad communicators?
1,000%. Let me go to Johnny.
Okay, so I'm going to make a prediction here, and we'll see if I'm right. This is exclusive. You're getting an exclusive for the reunion for people. I think that they are going to ignore that girl, and they're going to go in the direction of an Obama campaign, 2008 campaign. I think that's what they're going to, at least that's the messaging, right? They're going to go, because I noticed when she announced, when she was strutting along, the way she was talking, she sounded like Obama a little bit, right? And it was like somebody got in her ear, said, "Oh, you're up. Now listen, here's how you're going to do this." And I'm almost certain that she's getting coached and she's getting, talking pointed to death, but the policies that are widely popular with everybody, and this is even Republicans. I live in a really MAGA community. I mean, they're passive aggressive in Minnesota, and we'll talk about Tim Walz later. But even the MAGA, like, they don't all wear red hats. There was actually a young group that was up on Main Street, like 3 blocks away from me, the other night, like 20 young kids waving Trump flags and stuff. So I live around this, dude. I work with these people. I serve these people when they come in the store, and I'm telling you, they want health care too. They just don't. They're being manipulated by people who say that you're paying for all the people up in the cities to get health care out of your taxes. And that'll be another conversation, right? But they want it too. They realize how ridiculous it is. They're sick of the insurance companies. So it's not partisan when it comes to working people. They want what all these other countries have. But I do think that I don't think they're going to deliver, like they typically don't. But I think that's the campaign that they're going to start running. I don't think she's going to shift to the center as hard as Hillary did and make that mistake again. I honestly don't.
Yeah, before I go to David, I want to mention that David Plouffe, one of an Obama alumni, has joined, and a lot of Obama alum has joined the Harris campaign. They brought in all the all-stars, and to remember, he did win. So that's the smart
Campaign alum or like administration alum? Because the campaign was
alum.
lit. Okay,
No.
they were good.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point I'm bringing up.
And
That's
his message, sweep the U.S., dude. That progressive message. People like, let's give it to me. But then they didn't deliver. That's how we got Trump.
And they seem to be doing a good job at that. I mean, I was shocked, and we'll talk about this shortly, that Tim Walz was picked as the VP. I thought Mark Warner, at the worst, Shapiro maybe was going to be it, but it just made no sense with all the baggage that he had that it would be Shapiro. But anyway, Tim Walz, but something that was interesting was that they said she picked him because he was so successful as governor, bringing on all these progressive policies. So I'm like, if she wants her administration to have the same type of success that Tim Walz had in Minnesota, then at least it's not a guarantee that it's going to happen, but at least she's messaging that that's what she's trying to accomplish, which is interesting. All right, let me go to David.
Yeah, for anybody who's too worried that she's too far left, I would love to show them her campaign video that she's recently put out about how she is tougher on the border than Donald Trump. And then I also think, about like Tim Walz deploying the National Guard on Black Lives Matters protesters. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, we've got two cops who are joining forces to want to lead the country. And so I was like, I do think that she made the right choice in her vice president pick. But like, I also think that all of the progressive messaging and stuff that she is doing is completely virtue signaling. I was like, the day that the first time when she talked about I'm speaking to silence the protesters, the pro-Palestinian protesters at her campaign event. And then I think she got some pushback for that. So then she said, I'm willing to listen. I want to support a ceasefire. The same day, the Biden-Harris administration sent $3.5 billion more in money to Israel. So I was like, I don't believe the words that are coming out of her mouth. And so I was like, what I would love to see is if Joe Biden, who has no idea where he is, drops out right now, and then Kamala takes over. And I would love to see how she actually leads, because they say that presidents most of the time get the most stuff done in their first 100 days. Kamala could have two first 100 days if they dropped out. Imagine like being able to like galvanize a movement around, like she just declares, okay, we have a national emergency. COVID is still killing people. We're just going to give people Medicare for all. We are going to forgive all of your student loan debt. We're going to forgive all medical debt. We are going to make we're going to put like rental caps. We're going to make it so these huge corporations cannot continue to buy up single family homes and make it impossible to own a home. And so I was like, I would love to see that from her. I don't think we're going to get it. And so I was like, I would love to vote for Kamala Harris. I would love to. I can't. At this moment, I can't.
Yeah, 1,000%. So with that said, you're opening up the discussion that I wanted us to get to. And if you want to come back to David to expand upon that anymore, we can. But I'm going to go to Johnny. Who would you be supporting in this election?
Well, since I don't really like either of the duopoly parties and haven't for many years, it's kind of hard for me to see myself wanting to vote for the ticket, given that I'm in Minnesota. And they're probably going to easily sweep 70% with Walz. I mean, he's widely popular here. Okay. He has done a lot of good that we'll get to later. But I'm probably going to end up voting for Jill Stein to help the Green Party out.
Okay.
It's not going to affect the outcome, honestly. There's no way the Green Party has enough support in this state to get above 5, maybe. With some support they can, But I'm just talking reality here, guys. You know, I know leftists like to hate here. They think you're just having a defeatist attitude and everything. And it's like, no, the defeatist attitude is living in a delusion. Because that you can't win that way, because you're thinking that what you're doing is working, and that all the problem is other people. and it is to a certain extent, but you have to have tactics that navigate around those obstacles. And I just don't think they have it right now. Maybe if Joe Biden was still in the race, there would be a different story. But given it's a female, it's a woman, she's black, and then she picks one of the most progressive governors in the country with a pretty much impeccable record, with the exception of there's things that he did like during the Black Lives Matter protests and everything. But you can make have an honest conversation about what pressure he was under as governor, with the whole city erupting in flames, and what his choices were.
And we're going to that, Johnny. We're going to talk about that some more.
Yeah.
I took a note that we're going to have a whole Tim Walz discussion after this. But I want to go to Day, and then we could probably close out who we're voting for. Go ahead, Day. Let me bring on. Oh, you're mute. Yeah, there we go.
So I did.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dave. Let me just give a quick shout out to Jennifer in the chat. Much love.
Hey, Jennifer.
Go ahead, Dave.
Hey. But yeah, I definitely. Oh, that's Jennifer Perlman. Love you. Okay. Sorry, I'm a fan. I was not voting for Biden at all. I still wouldn't vote for Biden. I did decide to vote for Kamala when she chose to pick Tim Walz. And so I guess later, if we have time, I can talk about my thoughts on that. But yeah, that's who I'm planning to vote for at the moment.
Okay, so I'm going to vote for Jill Stein. I've had that pretty much that tradition of voting Green Party since 2008. I think the election before that, I voted for John Kerry. And from then I started getting politically educated and voted for Green Party from Cynthia McKinney on. And I'm actually a third party independent thinker that was willing to vote for the duopoly for Bernie. If he would have got it, the main nomination back in 2016 and in 2020, I was willing to vote for a Democrat. And I don't like to pigeonhole myself as to say I will never ever vote for the duopoly, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat or anybody. But I'm definitely that type of person, because I was even talking to a close family members of mine, and they were saying, I want to vote for the person that's going to win. But I was like, I hear you saying you want to vote for the person that you want to win. I'm voting for the person who I want, period. Like, I don't want to just vote for somebody because they might win, whether it's Kamala Harris or Donald Trump. I just want to vote for who I look at the policy. I agree with their policy. I agree they have a history of fighting. Jill Stein has been fighting for her for the policies that we believe in for so long. At the very beginning, when Cornel West was a Green Party nominee, and then he dropped out, and then it was Jill Stein and Cornel West, I was not sure who I was going to vote for. But now it's pretty much clear that Cornel West is not going to have the type of ballot access that Jill Stein is going to have. And also, I did not agree with how Cornel West handled himself with the situation between the conflict between Jill Stein and him. I saw him as being more of an adversarial towards Jill Stein, while Jill Stein was trying to be not the politician, not a statesman and a stateswoman, because she was trying to still take a hand, give out her hand and say, hey, let's collaborate. Let's find some way to come together. Even with Claudia de la Cruz, maybe you don't have to join the Green Party, but have some kind of way that you can bolster the leftist agenda. And I think I just saw, I don't know if you guys saw the interview with Jordan Sheridan with Cornel West, and it just seemed so vitriol. I should have put myself up on here. It's all good. But that's basically how I feel about the election. I think unless anybody have anything else to say, I see Jennifer has a comment. Let me read it. I'm not normally a single issue voter unless that issue is genocide. I still love
same.
So 1,000%. So I want to show a video because just to end off what we were talking about before about how popular policies is not far left. and this was clip today, and I thought this was an excellent clip. Let me share this tab, and then let me bring it on stage. I'm not going to play the whole thing. I'm just going to play the beginning. This was the interview with Bernie that Ali Volci did, but he had a very good beginning segment that I'm going to play right now.
After Democrats captured control of the governorship and both chambers of the state legislature after the 2022 elections, lawmakers in Minnesota proceeded to enact an ambitious set of bills that sought to help families and workers and slow the effects of climate change. Some of the policies, pardon me, the Democrats passed as part of that set of bills include providing free meals to students, free college at some of the state's public universities for students who come from families with an income of under $80,000, paid sick leave, paid family leave, and paid medical leave, a child tax credit, one of the largest in the country, a set of policies to shift the state away from fossil fuels. And he also took action to help Minnesota establish a public option in the future to allow all residents to buy into the state's health insurance program. Minnesota has also enacted some of the strongest protections for reproductive rights anywhere in the country. It's established automatic voter registration. It's subsidized the cost of electric vehicles. None of these things are radical. Many developed nations have already enacted many of these same policies because they are sensible. They ease the burdens that many families and working class people experience on a daily basis. America is the one that's out of step with most developed countries by not already having many of these policies in place. Some of these policies are popular across partisan lines. For instance, a poll commissioned by the independent Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont and recently released by Data for Progress found that the majority of likely voters in 6 swing states, regardless of party affiliation, said that they support reestablishing the child tax credit. As Senator Sanders wrote in a recent op-ed for The Guardian, campaigning on an economic agenda that speaks to the needs of working families is a winning formula for Kamala Harris and for Democrats in November. Indeed, it is the formula that could give Harris the sort of victory that sweeps in a Democratic Senate and a House and allows her to govern in the best tradition of Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal and Joe Biden's Build Back Better program, end quote.
All right. So let me go to David on this.
I still don't have any hope. As much as I want to, and as great as that all sounds, it doesn't matter who's in the second position if the one who's actually leading doesn't support this. It's great that that person can be in the room and maybe influence stuff, but if Kamala Harris is not supporting these things, I don't think it's going to do anything. I personally, I live in Colorado, so I was like, I am also voting for the Green Party because I was like, if I still lived in Atlanta, my calculation would probably be different. But I don't. And so I was like, I think that the way that the Electoral College is set up, we have to start thinking more strategically about okay, it's 5 states in the union that basically matter. So let's start actually voting for who we want to vote for. And instead of just playing this duopoly game, this illusion of choice. Yeah, I was like, this all sounds great, but I also I want to believe in this stuff. I was like, my state has paid family medical leave. We were the first state in the country to pass it by voters instead of having it being mandated by the legislature. And it's wildly popular. People love it. And we pay only 45 cents for every $100 in wages. It's a small tax, but I agree. These policies are popular. I live in a state with many of them that are being implemented. Yet I cannot forgive that she is part of the current administration that has allowed student loans to start back up, that allowed the child tax credit to expire, that all of these things that progressives want and that I want as well. I cannot forgive that for her. That's why I want to see her in action right now to see if she actually will do these things. Because I was like, what does she have to lose? She could still lose in November, but why not actually let her be president for 2.5 months and then do these things? And then she would probably win by 400 electoral votes if she did it. That I just don't understand why we're trying to appeal to this fascist middle.
Yeah. Oh, Case, you're muted.
Let me let Dave rebuttal. Go ahead, Dave.
Sure. So I agree with you in the sense that you said something that I specifically wanted to rebuttal, and now I'm mad that I didn't jot it down. But I will say this. I do believe that the role of vice president just like being the press secretary is your job is to pretty much lie and give cover for the president. I will grant her that as far as her inability to openly disagree with Biden. However, I do believe that I look at people's first run for president as like an interview / I'm voting on you on the strength of like on a good faith. I believe in your re-election campaign. I'm judging you by your works, as the Bible says. But I think when it comes to Kamala, the reason why I talked about the Tim Walz thing, that's what I wanted to say, was because yes, he is a number 2, but we have seen certain examples throughout history. I think the most prescient being Bush and Cheney, where I don't personally believe that Kamala has much interest in governing. I think she has way more interest in power and ego. And I don't even say, I mean, all these people are ambitious and narcissistic. It's a requirement for the job. So I personally would like to believe in a world where Tim Walz does the grunt work for Kamala behind the scenes, the way that Cheney did. And I think that if Tim is able to do that, given his relational politics with people that don't agree with him and people who do agree with him, that in a perfect world, he can provide Kamala the cover necessary to actually enact policies that are more progressive than what we would like. Now, I will agree with you, though. Her record of Kamala will agree with progressive policies until she is challenged. Like when I watched that interview she did where she talked about her mother having cancer and passing from that, and she understood how our insurance system is a fool. I said all they needed to do was tag, I'm Kamala Harris, and I endorse this message for Medicare for all. And it would probably be one of the greatest ads you could ever have. But unfortunately, they get in her ear and she's like, oh, okay, I was just kidding. I'm not really going to do that. And I think that is the dilemma with Kamala, is that I do actually think she has some progressive bona fides, or at least has an impulse for it. But the impulse is pointless if you don't actually follow through. And I feel like she lacks the bite, or maybe doesn't want the bite or the fight to do it in a way that Obama could kind of behave as well. So I would like to imagine a world where Tim provides her with some of that bite. And if nothing but ego, I would get in her ear and I would tell Kamala, your presidency doesn't just have to be, your legacy doesn't have to just be beating Trump. It could actually be beating Trump ideology. Imagine a world where after 40, 50, however many presidents, everyone talks about we finally have a woman. But what if you show them why a woman needed to be president, not just on the surface, but actually because you enacted fundamental policy that changed the lives of children, that changed education, that provided healthcare because you recognize the importance of family, like all the crap and stuff that you can put together messaging wise. I don't think she really realizes that, like, you would make yourself the new FDR, like the way we talk about him almost 100 years later. You could be that person if you decide to buck the system. But if you don't, and you settle for just being, I was the first female president, what a waste of an opportunity. We watched Obama do that, wasted. Okay, so you're muted.
1,000%. And that's one of the things that Tim Walz, and we're about to go into the last conversation before we end the show. And I know, Dave, you have a hard out in 2 minutes. So appreciate you coming on the show. I enjoyed you so much as usual, and everybody. So whenever you want to jump out, definitely jump out. But do you want to jump out now? You have any last?
I do have to jump out. I appreciate y'all. Listen, everybody has to do their part, whatever their heart says and whatever they feel is best. But continue to love each other, especially those of us on the left. We do enough fighting. We have to work to come together in these next 4 years, because nothing will happen without us banding together with pressure. But thank you for having us. Check out Call Me Limbo Pod, because David and I do a full 45-minute episode about debating about this exact topic.
Yes, from Friday, so it's new, it's current.
Yes. Okay, I'm definitely going to check that out. Much love to my guy, Dave.
See you later, Dave.
Good to see y'all.
Yeah, definitely. See you later. Already. So we got to do this one more time in a month or so. We won't be able to continue doing the shows like we used to, but I wanted to do a reunion. But because of the height of all this excitement, we should definitely do this again in about a month and see where we're at. So we're definitely going to do that, and hopefully we'll have more time with the day and hopefully bring back some of the other people as well. But before we start the next topic, I want to show which is going to be the discussion on Tim Walz. I'm going to show this video to get that started. All right, one moment. Where is it here? I'm sorry. I think I'm gonna have to bring it up from scratch. One moment. Share screen. Where is it? While I get this together, Johnny, can you give me your perspective of Tim Walz being in his state? Go ahead.
So I was gonna say, look, just to backtrack on what Dave was saying and how this whole, vice president thing happened, influence thing. I don't think he's gonna have a great deal of influence. You have to also understand that there's the Israeli lobby that both of them are comfortable with. And so I honestly think we're going to see the campaign rhetoric, but we're not going to see the follow through, just like Obama, right? It's just going to be a repeat of Obama. That's what I think is going to happen.
Got you. So this is, but I'm sorry, finish your thought. Go ahead, Johnny.
Just to touch on, he has been a fantastic governor. I will not doubt it. Look, the man lied straight to my face when I was running for Congress about why he supported Hillary Clinton. And I was irked with him ever since. But then, as you heard Ali Velshi talk about, there's all these things they did. They legalized weed. We have same-day registration. We did all these things in Minnesota where we are an example on how states can actually be and take care of, kids in school and, all these things. So, there are some, the conservatives who don't understand that you have to take care of your society in order for your society to be healthy. They buck up against that. And they say, why should we feed rich kids? They use this stupid excuse. Why should we let rich kids get free lunch? Who cares if 10 rich kids in school get free lunch, if that's what they want? Who cares, dude? Feed all the kids in school. Shut up. So he's been highly successful, and he has a pretty decent record. But I also think that he's going to be put in a corner as vice president, and none of that's going to really matter after the election. Mm-hmm. I think she's probably going to end up winning by a lot. Whether it's a landslide, I don't know. But if she can keep the pace and keep her mouth shut, it's hers to lose. Mm-hmm. But if she starts adopting these progressive policies that we've talked about, the rhetoric of them, it'll gain steam like Obama did. And there's people are sick of Trump, really, because he just rambles. So I think that's probably where we're headed with it.
I think the best thing that Kamala is doing right now is she's not running a "I'm with her" campaign. Right. She herself hardly ever mentions that she's black, that she's a woman running for office, and to vote for me because I'm a black woman. She lets everybody else say that. So I give her credit for that. Let me play this video. And this is of Jesse Ventura coming out and endorsing pretty much Harris and Walz. And this is the story behind it.
Thank you for coming on today, Governor. Let's start with this. You once held the same job as Governor Walz. What are your impressions of him?
Well, first and foremost, let me say, Reverend Sharpton, it must have taken you and Jesus to get me back on MSNBC, because I never thought I'd be on this network ever again. And it took two people like you two, I think, to achieve that. But having said that, I'll tell you about Governor Walz, what I see about him. I'm a complete independent. And when he won his first election as governor, within 24 hours, he called me and set up a meeting with me to pick my brain. No other governor's ever done that, Republican or Democrat, but Tim Walz did. And what that showed me, Tim Walz is the kind of guy who's out for success, and he will reach across the aisle, because he came to me, the ultra independent in Minnesota, to seek me out to get any information that would help him govern, and I happily did so. And I'll tell you what else he did. 20-some years ago, I tried to legalize cannabis marijuana. I lit the match. Well, the match simmered for 20 years and finally became a flame. And Governor Walz called me and he said, Governor Ventura, you need to be in my office Monday at 11. I'm going to sign into law ending the prohibition of marijuana in Minnesota. It was your idea. You're still alive. You should be there to take credit for this, because you're the one that done it. That's the kind of person Tim Walz is.
Wow. Well, former president.
All right. So I thought that was an interesting story.
I mean, people are really wishing they could vote for Tim Walz right now.
Yeah,
it's really what it boils down to. And look, I know back in history, that Teddy Roosevelt slipped in because, you know, of what happened to McKinley, but that's not something that we're entertaining, right? The idea that she's young, she's fit, she's, you know, with the exception of any horrible act happening, she's going to serve her term, and you're not going to see Tim Walz slip into that position. So, I mean, it just is reality what it is.
I remember what I was going to say. Go ahead.
Well, it's a good. I don't want to say it in a bad way, but it's good for publicity. And that's about where we're going to get with it. Unless we get some, unless, like somebody said earlier, if you get a whole rollover of a massive, you know, blue wave and all of those are, you know, they're bought by the Israeli lobby and all that too. But if that blue wave happens because the people were pushing them in that direction, there's a possibility you might get some. But we had that blue wave with Obama in 2008 and we got the ACA. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So if we're making that comparison, and it's going to be real hard. I'm with Dave on this. It's really hard to convince me that we're going to see the policy that you know comes with a Tim Walz VP pick.
Imagine if Hillary Clinton back in 2016, she got the nomination. First of all, imagine if she picked Bernie as her VP. I think it's not radical to say she probably would have won, right? Yeah. So, okay, let's say somehow she gets through with Tim Kaine. Imagine her saying, okay, the first thing I'm going to do is sit down with Bernie Sanders and pick his brain on what we should do. So that's kind of what Governor Ventura is saying here, because he was kind of on the outs with the Democrats and the Republicans back in those days. And matter of fact, Johnny will probably know more than me being in that state, how he said, Jesse Ventura said that the one time he saw the Democrats and Republicans come together was to go against him, you know, as governor. So for Tim Walz to become that Democratic leader of that state as governor, and then to say within 24 hours he reached out to Jesse Ventura, I think that is a positive thing. And like you said, Johnny, I think a lot of people.
He's a good guy. I mean, look, he's been in positions where he's probably had to, you know, like when he supported Hillary. The lie that he told me was that he supported her because she helped him with this VA bill, and then I went and fact checked it, and they weren't in office together. It was, you know, she was. So it was just an excuse he used because he got called from the top. He's a party man. He's a party man, right? And he got the call from the top. This is what your superdelegate vote's going to be, and he convinced himself that that's what it was for. Look, I worked with her. You know, I didn't work with Bernie or whatever. And, but he's, for the most part, he's really a guy of integrity. You know, if you've ever seen his clips with him and his daughter, I mean, they're naturals. They're just naturals. They're not acting. He's not putting on a show. He's got a famous one where he's at the, you know, at the fair and he's just talking with her. And then he cracks that joke at the end where he's like, yeah, we're going to go get a corn dog. And she goes, nope, vegetarian. And he goes, okay, turkey then. And she goes, nope, that's still meat. And he goes, nope, not in Minnesota. Turkey's different. Right. And it's just so natural. Like you really can't help but laugh. He's a great guy. However, he's not the one running for president, and he's not the one that's going to be filling that seat. So he's going to probably be put in a corner like most vice presidents are, given some kind of side gig to do, and pretty much told what his job will be by the handlers, you know? Yeah,
1,000%. Dave, I have one more video and then we're going to head out and end the show, but I want you to jump in here if you have anything to say on this particular.
No, I agree. I also really want to like Walz, similar to what Jennifer's saying. And I was like, I think that Kamala made the right choice. I think she did make the right choice. But I also know at the end of the day, I'm voting primarily for her. And right now, I just can't do that.
100%. All right. So I'm going to share this right here. Like this.
Looking for support in both campaigns. Looking for support from Wall Street. And joining us right now is Lydia Moynihan, New York Post financial correspondent. Good morning to you.
Good to see you.
Okay,
Summer Friday.
Summer Friday. What do you think is going to happen here? And what are you hearing? What's everybody telling you?
An open-ended question. Look,
Yes.
I mean, Wall Street is all in on Kamala Harris. And what's interesting is they kind of feel a sense of responsibility for having her in there in the first place because they credit themselves correctly or incorrectly for Biden's ouster because obviously donors halting donations was a key part of that. So now
You think
they
all
feel
of
like
Wall Street
she's
is in
their
for her?
person. Do I think?
You think all of
I'm
it? No.
I'm not going to paint with a broad brush.
You
Look,
said
Wall
Wall
Street
Street is
extends
in.
to Florida, to Ken Griffin, to,
Right.
to Steve Schwartz. But you look at some of the bigger folks like a Blair Efron and Mark Lazary. There is a concerted effort led by financiers on Wall Street to, and again, not a lot of time left, but we are looking at an effort. People want to donate in October. They want to donate in September to really sustain that momentum. And a lot of these folks met her, like a Lazary, like an Efron, back when she was running for president in 2020. So they feel that they've known her, even though she's newer to the national stage, is the top of the ticket. They feel they got to know her over the past few years, develop a relationship with her the last time she
Okay,
ran
so
for
here's
president.
the
and that's
here's
continued
the
on.
second part to the question. Then there's been a frustration, as you know, especially among Wall Street Democrats, about the Biden administration's regulatory regime. All these bankers who can't do these mergers and other deals and things like that. This group of people who say are all in now on Harris would love for her to tack to the center, at least on regulatory issues. Do you think that she will, and how is that influence
And those
playing?
tax cuts are sunsetting next year as well. That's front and center of everyone's mind. Because a lot of these people feel like and this is painting with a broad brush, some of these financiers feel they've known her for long enough. They feel confident that she's a little malleable. And it's a fascinating question. I asked them this as well, is if you look at her time in the Senate, she had a more progressive voting record than almost anyone.
Right.
And you would never see them rallying behind Bernie Sanders. But I think because they feel like they had a relationship with her at this point, and they point to her time as a DA and somebody who's building relationships with people in California, they feel confident at some level that she's going to maybe have a lighter touch on regulation. It's an interesting situation. She is a candidate where sort of like a Rorschach test. People see what they want to see. They can look at somebody like her and see she's very progressive, but then people on Wall Street say, no, she's very reasonable. She gets it. She knows what the private sector is.
And I remember that Obama had that connotation of himself, that he was anything that somebody would project on them. They saw, like, if you're a progressive, you would think that Obama was a progressive. If you're establishment, you would look at it and see that he's an establishment. The funny thing is, like, to the public, he pretended to be progressive to everybody, while behind the scenes, he was reassuring his donors that, don't worry about it. You're not going to have too much change, just like Biden. And I love watching CNBC because, and like Morning Joe on MSNBC as well, because you're like, in a regular situation, I'm not going to be in the same room as these guys. I'm not going to be in their yacht or in their mansions at these parties and having these conversations. Watching Morning Joe, watching CNBC puts me into those rooms. And as we can see right here, Wall Street feels very comfortable. They feel like they know her. They feel like she's malleable, which I would think that's a bad thing.
But do you know why?
Somebody
Look at my comment in the chat.
Yeah,
It's because one of her chief financial advisors is a BlackRock goon.
exactly.
Okay, there's 3 BlackRock executives, or whatever, VP this or whatever they were in BlackRock, that are in the administration. Not just her, but specifically on her side, she's got So those are, when I say handlers, everybody, those are the people I'm talking about. These advisors, these people. Remember when Obama got elected, he was handed a list of his hand by Citibank, right? We all know that, right?
Email.
Okay.
Yeah. John Podesta
We know that. So those are the handlers.
Yeah.
Those are the people. BlackRock, Vanguard, Blackstone, they own half of the world, right? And do you think they don't put people in places of government all over and say, this is what your boss wants you to do, so this is important, right? And that's what's happening. Whether it's that overt or whether it's more covert, the influence is still there. So if Wall Street is already signaling that she's a friend of Wall Street, you can bet damn sure she will not be a friend of Main Street.
1,000%.
Do not come together. They
1,000%. They do not mesh. They're already talking about, they're hoping that Trump, the Trump tax cuts. She just mentioned that there are going to be some like continuity there, or that their interest is going to be in the tax cuts. So, and that's what was talked about before with David saying that the only difference between a dictatorship is there's one more choice. Like, we're one choice away from a dictatorship, where in a lot of situations, And on CNBC, they were talking about the owner of that bank. Man, why I can't think of it.
Is it Jamie Dimon?
Jamie Dimon, yeah, being Trump,
Dimon,
the Treasury, the
both
Treasury
Trump for the Treasury position.
Secretary.
That both Trump was suggesting he would be, and then also they're suggesting for her to pick. So on both Democrats and Republicans, potentially he could be the Secretary of the Treasury. So David, I'll let you close this out.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me because when I think about like police protect Capitol, and Kamala Harris is a police officer. She's been that in her entire life. Joe Biden bragged in a recent speech about how he and his administration, the Biden-Harris administration, have put the most police officers on the streets in the United States of any administration ever. And so it's like, it doesn't surprise me that Wall Street is responding favorably because the police who are in charge, the cops who are in charge, protect Capitol. And that's all Wall Street is.
That's why it was interesting to see that she picked Tim Walz because we saw on Morning Joe, there was a clip that I could have played, but they were disappointed, the Wall Street, that she picked Tim Walz, but they still were optimistic. So we'll see. Time will tell. Thank you so much, David, Johnny, for coming on the show. Day, who was here earlier. We probably will do this again in a month to do a catch up. It will be after the convention, and I'm looking forward to hearing the latest podcast from Call Me Limbo as they go to the DNC. That's going to be very interesting. And then also check out Johnny's. Can you give us the website again? And he is now.
Yeah, it's understandingmmt.org. So if you want to understand MMT, understandingmmt.org.
Awesome. I'm going to paste it into the chat here. Boom. So check it out in the chat. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll hopefully see you again in a month.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Let me give a shout out. Christian, Jennifer, thank you so much for coming out. Holly Horn was here, and much love to the chat. We appreciate you. Could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us. Much love. Adios.
Thanks, Case.
You guys stay right there.